Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz joins us now. Congresswoman, in the wake of the comments made by Congressman Aiken on abortion, you've been sending out fundraising appeals that seemed, or that attempt to link Mitt Romney with Congressman Aiken, even Paul Ryan's position on abortion. You do acknowledge that Mitt Romney supports abortion in the cases of rape, incest, and the life of the mother, don't you?
Well, I think that women need to know the dramatic difference between President Obama's position on a woman's right to make her own reproductive choices, as well as the Democratic Party's position, and Mitt Romney and the Republican Party. And so Mitt Romney's words are very nice, but the bottom line is that his campaign just directed the Republican Party platform to include the most restrictive constitutional amendment that would say to women that you would have no opportunity to make your own reproductive choices under any circumstances, even in the case of rape or incest.
But wait a minute, you're saying his campaign
silent and makes no exception at all.
You're saying his campaign directed you're saying his campaign directed the writing of the platform. And that's the claim you make in your fundraising.
That's the responsibility of a...
But it's not. I mean, you're saying it was...
That's the responsibility of a presidential campaign.
But factually speaking, Mitt Romney did not design or direct the writing of the Republican Party platform. In particular, the language on abortion is virtually the same as it's been for years. Are you saying that he wrote in 2000, 2004, and 2008? Because it's the same language, and according to our reporters who were in the room as the platform was being discussed, people could suggest changes, and the Romney campaign did suggest changes to a few sections, but they didn't say anything about the abortion language. And you can fault them, as you did, for not pushing their position, but you can't say they designed the abortion section.
Anderson, we definitely can say it, because even in the previous platform, Mitt Romney has embraced previous Republican Party platforms and embraced that language and said he'd be delighted to support a constitutional amendment banning all abortion. He supported personhood amendments. I mean, there's no getting around.
But he has also vocally for years policy. Sorry, I don't want to speak over you, but he has for years, you have to acknowledge, he has for years publicly said that he supports abortion in the case of rape, incest, and where the life of the mother is at stake.
I can certainly acknowledge that he says that out loud, and I think it's very clear that Mitt Romney talks the talk, certainly doesn't walk the walk. He has fully embraced his party's platform that includes a constitutional amendment banning all forms of abortion, including with no exception for rape or incest.
I guess I don't understand, though, why in a fundraising appeal you would, it seems, maybe accidentally, but you completely misquote the LA Times. You make it sound as if they're saying something that they're not saying, and you're using that as evidence to back up your position.
Anderson, it doesn't matter any way you slice it.
What matters, I mean, if you're misquoting the LA Times to say something they didn't say, you're saying it's proof of your position, and Anderson, it's actually not proof of your position.
Email. The reason that we sent out that email, and that we will continue to send out emails and reach out to voters, is we want them to know the difference between the two parties and the two parties' candidates on a woman's right to make her own reproductive choices, and that Mitt Romney has a very extreme position on that issue.
But just as you don't like being misquoted, I don't like being misquoted. I'm sure the LA Times doesn't like being misquoted to back up a position, your political position. I don't understand why you would need to do that.
There is no getting around. I'm sorry, there's no getting around that Mitt Romney, when he accepts his party's nomination for President of the United States next week, and they adopt that platform, which has no exception for rape or incest in it, that is Mitt Romney's platform. And, you know, to suggest anything else is absolutely ludicrous, and it would be different than any other previous party convention.
Do you at least acknowledge that the quote that you gave from the LA Times is completely incorrect?
No, I don't acknowledge that. I know that's what you're saying, but
well,
what
I can read it to you right now. I mean, what you said is, guess what? The LA Times reported yesterday that the platform was...
What I'm saying, it doesn't matter.
Well, I think what you say does matter. You're quoting the LA Times, and again, you've misquoted them, and to back up a position. I mean, if
the point, Anderson, the point of the email, and there's no getting around that, and I would think you would agree that there's no way that a presidential candidate, a party's nominee, can separate themselves from that party's platform. There is no exception for rape or incest in the Human Life Amendment.
Right,
but he hasn't insisted that his own party's platform... But no, he hasn't, because he hasn't insisted that he had an opportunity during the drafting of that platform language to make sure that his own view, if that really is his view, is in that party's platform's language. And it isn't. He didn't do that. Neither did his campaign team. That's why we sent the email. Because I want to make sure women know that.
But you sent the email to raise funds, and you're misusing a quote. And I do think accuracy is important, and my job is to point out things that are not factually correct. What you said, guess what? The Los Angeles Times reported yesterday that the platform was, and I quote, written at the direction of Romney's campaign. That sounds very direct, but that's not actually what the LA Times was saying. That's not what they actually said.
The bottom line message?
The bottom line, what they said was delegates for presumptive nominee Mitt Romney are voting down substantive changes to the platform language that was written at the direction of the Romney's campaign. They're not saying they wrote all the language. They're just saying specific language that the Romney campaign wrote, their surrogates are voting down, and abortion language that was not part of that.
Anderson, the bottom line message of our email is that, A, women need to know the difference between the two parties and the two presidential candidates on a woman's right to make her own reproductive choices, and that Mitt Romney can say that he's for an exception for rape or incest. His party platform doesn't reflect that. He has previously fully embraced a human life amendment with no exception and said he'd be delighted to support it. And women need to know the difference. And women need to know that Mitt Romney is simply saying one thing, but not insisting that his party's policies, as reflected in their platform, reflect his views. And we're not going to let him get away with it. This is an important decision that women need to make, and they need to be informed.
My only point is, and again, it's my job on both sides of the aisle to point out things that are inaccurate, is in a fundraising email to misquote something to serve your argument just doesn't seem, in the long term, to serve your argument very well. But you made your point.
I understand your point, but I think the balance of the email makes the case very clearly, and the main thrust of the information we're trying to convey is that Mitt Romney is disingenuous when it comes to his position on a woman's right to make her own reproductive choices, and he's extreme, and has embraced an extreme position, and we want women to know that.
Congressman W. Wasserman Schultz, I appreciate you being on. Thank you.